Hey guys, you're listening to Metal Matters, a weekly Gimme Radio podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hill. If you like metal, punk, hardcore, or anything extreme, you've come to the right place. So subscribe and never miss out. This week I'd like to welcome Colin van Eeckhout of Amenra. I caught up with him when the band played Brooklyn. They're out on tour with Voivod and Yob right now, so if they're coming to a city near you, definitely check them out. If I were pressed to describe the music of Amenra, I would say sublime, music of the spheres, intense, emotionally impactful, and one of the best live experiences I've seen in years. You know, it was a very cool interview, and I look forward to the next time we meet. It was a beautiful day out in Brooklyn, so we decided to escape the noise of the club and exchange that for the street noise of Brooklyn. So you'll notice that there's a lot of ambient sound, you know, children talking, cars blowing their horns, but it kind of adds to the ambiance of the whole experience. So anyway, enjoy. It's a lovely day here in Brooklyn, New York. So you're back in the States again.
Yeah.
And you're on tour with Yob and Voivod.
Yep.
And so where are we at in the tour right now?
First week done, 3 more to go. Yeah.
Wow.
So still going strong.
Full US.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. You've been over here quite a bit in the last couple of years, twice with Neurosis.
Yeah.
Then I caught you guys at St. Vitus, and I think that was like a routing date to get to the Neurosis tour. And so do you enjoy being in the States on tour?
Yeah. We really like being here just because the size of the damn thing, you kind of have to fight the country to get through it, you know. It's long drives. We're totally not used to that in Europe, you know, and especially since we're in Belgium. We're central everything, so we pop out every weekend and we can do another country every weekend if we want to, you know. So and the thing here that's interesting is that we're away from home longer than normally, and we're really really close to one another again. Like in Europe, you already know a lot of people, and now here it's back to us 5, or you know. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Now, prior to these last couple of years, I only remember you guys playing here on tour like maybe one other time.
Yeah.
And you were with this French band, I remember. I think so.
Well, we had 2 tours before the Neurosis tour, and one was with Zoroaster.
Oh, okay,
Zoroaster
yeah.
We did a tour with, and then another band was Battlefields from
the Midwest, Minneapolis. Yeah, I know those guys. Yeah, really cool guys.
So they're really nice to take us with them, and they took really great care of us. But that was the first tours.
Now, aside from the distances traveled, you know, some people out there probably that might be listening to this have never been to Europe, and certainly haven't experienced the touring experiences over in Europe. So what are the differences between the United States and Europe, and you know, travel and touring and that kind of thing?
It's harder to tour in the States because logistically there's not as much support as there is in Europe. Europe pretty much treats you as kings. I mean, your plate of food is ready, you get the keys to the hotel, stuff like that, you know. So, and here, you know, you have to do a lot of it more yourself.
Yeah.
I think for bands here, it takes a lot more effort than in Europe.
Yeah, I find that there's almost an adversarial relationship here with you know, promoters and.
yeah, sometimes it happens. I mean, now it's better because the size of the tours are bigger. So, but in a way, you know, we've been around for 20 years. But when we sometimes arrive here at a venue, they still look at you as we're only the opener. So. Yeah. And we do know what we want, so we have certain demands, or we go for it full on to get what we want.
Yeah.
And that kind of that gives some funny situations sometimes, you know, where you kind of have to bite your lip and you know, okay, yeah.
Actually, you mentioned it. I was actually going to talk about the band being around for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw you was when my old band played with you at the late great ex Steffi venue, and I feel like the band has changed quite a bit over the years. Maybe around that time, Amenra was more deeper rooted in like what I would consider to be like kind of more traditional late '90s metalcore. With like sort of like that European influence. I think we might have spoke about this before.
Definitely. We were definitely influenced from that and evolved from that. Yeah.
Yeah, but then more recently, like from your mid period on, a lot more different influences have entered in. You've gotten more creative with arrangements, and so like what's the evolution of that? Like what sort of informed your influences on that?
I'm not really sure that the thing with us is it all grows so organically that we never really have a decent explanation for a lot of the things that change. Things changed, and yet again we stay very much the same. I mean, for over 20 years, they're okay. We've evolved from a more post-hardcore ish music to more heavier sound and slower music, But I think especially the latest addition to the band was Levi, who joined us in 2016, I think.
Oh, so he's a relatively new guy.
Yeah. So he's rather new, but and he was also able to take in the band from a distance at first. So that was definitely a new wind that blew through the songwriting, because he had a totally different reference point than we had, because we had made 5 albums already, and so he had a totally different approach to writing and ideas that we sometimes didn't come up with. Yeah. So that definitely changed a lot and took us a step forward in evolving without changing intrinsically or emotionally. The idea behind the music and what it does to people is still the same, yet the approach is a little different musically.
Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about the last time we spoke, when I interviewed you for Revolver a couple of years ago, and they wanted to sort of avoid this topic because it was like, not in line with the vibe I think that they had. But like, I'm interested in like extreme shit, you know what I mean? Like, pushing yourself beyond certain limits. And I know that you're involved in like this whole suspension culture. So for you, like, just explain that, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that I've being someone who's like read, modern primitive stuff, and it just, to me, it's fascinating, and I just want to hear your perspective on it.
I mean, there's like it does come naturally again. It pops up in my head without really having all the answers ready in the first place. So a lot of interviews kind of help me to analyze it myself. But I mean, like I wrote a lot of lyrics that were about pain and life's pains and trying to overcome those pains. And we talk about sacrificing. Life is sacrificing from time to time to be able to move on and stuff. So I immediately want to incorporate that even more in music. I want it to be real, and I want the people to know that it is real and it comes from a truthful place, and not just a theoretical scripture. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I've always been intrigued by rites of passage and rituals, and analyzing society today that loses all of its rituals and loses all of its spiritual fundaments. Like I'm not talking about organized religion here and stuff, but it is a fact that in humanity there still is an urge to have something to believe in, as to be able to believe in themselves. They kind of have to mirror that idea onto something they can hold on to be able to believe in themselves and overcome whatever needs to be overcome.
So in a way, you're saying that like a belief system almost validates the existence of the individual in some ways, I guess.
I think it's comforting nature. It's idea of not being alone in this that does the trick for a lot of people. So and then it ties into the rituals and the physicality of rituals. I mean, as soon as there is blood involved, it becomes real, and it becomes an important happening. You know, like that's what I noticed. You know, as soon as someone on stage starts to bleed, it becomes real, and it becomes the passion is translated into something visible.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea, and I mean, we've done a couple of shows. We try not to exaggerate with them, because otherwise it becomes a gimmick or a shock rock type of thing, which would be a disaster if it changed into something like that. But it's a way of translating a pain that lives within every human being at certain times in their lives, and it becomes a moment within a concert where that pain that lives inside of everybody becomes real, and you see someone overcoming something that theoretically isn't possible humanly or whatever. So and you take that with you, I think, as a listener or as a viewer, and it does something with the mind as well, things like that. It's really interesting matter.
Well, definitely, because I know just in some of the reading I've done, not specifically about suspension, but about like going through very intense physical trauma, that a lot of chemicals in the brain are released and creates like a meditative state, or almost like a psychedelic experience, and a lot of it is like connected with like near-death experiences. And have you ever reached that point in this?
I fear I am too much of a rational or a reasonable being for that. I analyze too much, I hoped for it. First time I suspended, I really hoped to get that out-of-body experience, or talk to everybody I had lost throughout my life, for example. Like, in a way, that was kind of what I was hoping for. But it was a rational experience, pretty much.
Okay. Because you read about other people doing that, and there is this this mythology that surrounds it.
I do believe that some people experience that way, but I think it's just it depends on how the chemicals in your brain are divided or balanced. I think some people get there, some others don't. I mean, it's the same thing as you have when you have a good concert. I mean, and nothing goes wrong, and you get to that point where planets align pretty much, and you feel pretty much invincible. You know what I mean? You feel like you can conquer the world by yourself. Yeah. And that is a really interesting feeling that you can get through music and through art. So. And it all ties into one another,
Yeah, one of the interesting things you mentioned is like ritual, music, pain, these sort of ordeals. And, ancient, as you probably know, ancient cultures, there's always these like rites, these rituals that involve dancing and music and sort of altered states of consciousness and things. And that was kind of why I was asking you about that, because like some people I've read about experiences like that. And in the cases, I mean, I know you speak for yourself as being like having a rational experience, but what do you think other people are experiencing? Do you think it's just a chemical thing, or do you think they actually are connecting with some other consciousness or presence, or, just you have theories about that? Because I'm fascinated by it, to be honest.
I don't really know. I think you have to open up your spirit and your mind to stuff like that. I mean, if you want it, and you really need it, you might be able to get it. I don't know. It depends. I mean, it's a hard topic. I think you have a lot of different people who. It's about getting energy from something.
Sure.
It's being able to find that doorway or find that passageway. To step into a certain door that renews a certain energy and gives you something out of this world feeling. I try to make it smaller in a way, and I make it smaller, and I say when you see a band and you hear a certain music or whatever and you get goosebumps listening to it, or you get a shiver down your spine, those are the tangible religious moments I recognize, and ritual-wise, and I mean, there's a lot of psychedelics or drugs involved to reach that state, or a fasting
Right.
period or something like that. Like you have to probably do something physically to your body to be able to mentally get there as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the physical, the body carries the brain around
Yeah.
through time and space, and obviously the brain controls the body, but the feedback loop of the brain forcing the body to do something that it, on some level, rationally might not want to do, there has to be like a feedback loop back to the brain, and I think a lot of these experiences kind of like are part of that feedback loop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my own personal theory.
No,
about
it's
it.
true. It's true. But it's a very abstract and a difficult matter to analyze. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all pretty much. There's a lot of assumption and individual opinions about it. It's hard to describe. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a very individual matter. How you experience that and how you.
How long have you been involved in suspending? Is this something you've been doing your whole life, or?
I knew I got in. I read certain books like the Modern Primitive book, and I felt the connection. I felt like something in my head said, you have to do that someday. Why, I don't know. But it was hard then to find the people who did that stuff, because you didn't have internet and you didn't have
back then.
so that was a wild time to find people, and I found some people in Holland who approached it from a very ritualistic angle, and that's what I was looking for, because you have a lot of people who do it on their barbecues and stuff.
Oh wow, really?
I mean, it's not like my kind of thing, you know. Like, it's not a festive happening in my eyes. It's kind of, so it was really nice we did it in a forest, and there was actually a fasting period before that. And since I was straight edge, I pretty much was halfway there already. So it was easy for me to take all those steps. But it definitely brings people together. I still have a strong connection with all the people there who also did their first suspensions. They immediately became a sort of family for me, and because you kind of go through a certain. It's weird what that does with a person. Right?
I think that's important though, and I think that on like a very fundamental level, like humans need that belonging in a way.
Yeah. You look for. You look to belong somewhere.
And as much as like within this like subgenre of music that we're involved in, that people want to be individuals and they want to be outsiders, that even by definition being part of this thing is still, you're still belonging to.
But you still want to belong. You still want to be understood. You still don't want to be alone.
No.
Yeah, I think that is the case with pretty much every human being. As solitary as you like to be, in the end, you probably don't want to be alone or die alone. You know what I mean? So that's definitely something that is playing a huge part in.
Now, you've been doing this for quite a while. So has your threshold of pain increased quite a bit? Like, can you take a lot more pain now than you used to?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm
Really?
not sure. I am not the kind of guy that will assume that I do or whatever. But I mean, I think it all depends on how your mental state is. If you feel on top of the world, you might be able to handle more than when you kind of feel sick or kind of feel down or whatever. And then again, it depends. It all depends on your expectations as well. It's like when you get a tattoo. And you think, oh shit, that spot is gonna hurt like hell, and you start off, and because you had these expectations that it was going to hurt so much, it's okay, and then the second time around you go back, you think, oh yeah, it was okay last time, it'll hurt like hell.
Yeah, that's a good point that you bring out, because I've experienced that too myself.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, oh yeah, it'll be fine, and then it turns out to be the fucking most nasty spot you ever had. So it all depends on how you feel in the end, If I go skateboard and I hit my deck against my shin, I'm still dying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I bring that up because like I've been practiced martial arts, and like when I first started doing Muay Thai, like my legs would get bruised up and I'd be in pain and I couldn't walk for like days for getting kicked in the legs. and 20 years later, my legs don't even bruise anymore. My shins are like, they have no feeling in them.
Yeah. Certain things you can
condition.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So the last record came out like almost 2 years ago at this point, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, are you working on new material or?
Yeah, we're always working and writing pretty much, because we've made some music for movies, like soundtracks, and we have some like, since we're 20 years in now, we have some special events happening in Belgium where we make some. We're gonna have some huge bonfires that we wrote music for, like for the city we live in, Ghent. We together with the city, we're gonna build like a ritual for the inhabitants of Ghent, where people can burn their unacknowledged loss altogether, and we wrote music for that evening, you know. So
and is that going to be like filmed and stuff? And
I think we'll try to film it, but
yeah.
it's not really planned to get on an album or something. But we do have a lot of these things happening kind of under the radar, which takes a lot of our time writing it and doing it. But it doesn't necessarily translate itself in an album.
Well, two things come up now that you mentioned that. You mentioned burning and the act of burning, and burning is like another thing that's involved in a ritual, like burning incense or sage, and even intentions. Like people are sometimes known to write their intentions on a piece of paper,
burn it,
they make a candle and they burn it, and sort of putting that out into the universe again. So we spoke about this briefly when I interviewed you at Revolver, about the sort of Christian themes or vaguely Christian ideas, and that's you were that your background is as a Roman Catholic, right? Or is it?
Well, the most villages we come from have the huge Roman Catholic church in the middle of the small village, being the biggest building, and everything evolves a bit around that. But I, on the other hand, was raised atheist, like agnostic, free-thinking people. It's called, like in Belgium. So that's probably why I kept my interest in it, because a lot of my friends who actually had lessons in school about in Catholicism and had to do their communions and shit, they didn't give a rat's ass anymore. It was just the boring class they had and whatever. It was just a load of bullshit for them. But I thought it was interesting, the metaphors and the ideas behind it and the morals, and I still saw the essence of it. I think I looked through the stupidity of a lot of it. And that's why I started to appropriate the things that made sense for me, and I made it our own again. I gave them the meaning that I wanted them to have and make sense to me. So that's why we have a lot of that in there, and it definitely is something we grew up with. The grandmas burning their candles when they had exams. And
I mean, I grew up as a Roman Catholic as well. I mean, like the Italian, Mediterranean sort of thing, and it's you have this bias because you see how like organized religion has kind of controlled people, but then at its essence, and especially the Roman Catholics, it really is almost like a pagan religion.
It is. I mean, and a lot of the religions are, in essence. I mean, pretty much all the religions in the world have the same essence. I mean, it's just a different book that is written about it. So, and everybody knows what it shouldn't be. You shouldn't read about religion. You feel religion, or you feel spirituality, or you feel something. Beauty, even. I mean, fuck it. That's religious too, for all I care.
I mean, a lot of my own, personal sort of DIY education involves reading about religions, and Catholicism's definitely on the table. Islam, the Kabbalah, Judaism, as well as like mythology, Roman mythology, Greek mythology, paganism, Hindu, and in this country at least, like Christianity is like always on the firing line because of the severe ignorance of some of the practitioners here.
Yeah, of course.
But similar to all these other things, there are definitely ideas that can serve you in your personal life if you take a more spiritual approach to it.
Definitely. Or if you read between the lines instead of everything literally. That
exactly.
was, in my eyes, the intention of the whole thing for every religion. But, so It definitely is, and it is, and you feel it more and more that it is still important to humans to have that, you know. Yet they don't want it to be served on a plate and written down in the rules.
Yeah.
You know? But they still need something.
Well, there's like a weird.
It all makes sense.
There's like a weird validation like that's going on. I think currently, at least in this society here, is that there have to be these qualifiers as to what's like acceptable to be influenced by. If it's like some indigenous thing, it's great, and it's great to read about and embrace everything. But if it has any connection to what is considered, the normal sort of conservative, atmosphere in the country, then it's completely rejected by people who consider themselves to be more free thinkers. And it's like a weird sort of dichotomy. I think.
I think it becomes dangerous or it becomes useless when you try to force it on other people.
Yeah.
It's it's an individual thing again. It's how you practice your religion and what it does to you that counts. It's not you thinking that you're the best person around and have all your shit together and know the truth from what is not the truth. That's what makes it ridiculous. And that's where a lot of the pointing at each other comes from. I'm like, it doesn't matter.
And then also just like the human ego plays in factors too when it comes to using some of these religions to control people. I mean, that's, it's all around us really. It's not so much coming from a spiritual place. It's coming from a way of like, okay, I want to make all these people do exactly what I want them to do. Yeah,
to keep them in line, I think. And I think in certain areas in the world, you need something, even if it's fear.
Yeah,
it was easier in the past to install a certain fear that you might go to hell or whatever the fuck would happen with you, just to keep everybody in line and keep it organized. Otherwise, it will be chaos would reign and everything would deteriorate quite fast, I think. So that was a function it had as well, when law and whatever wasn't installed yet. So it's all very interesting what it was used for in the end, besides fucking spiritual reinforcement or fundament.
Well, that's one of the things that I talk about with people sometimes about, they talk about like these organized monotheistic religions as being about control. And part of me was like, well, pagans, there was like significantly less people around.
Also,
and they were traveling in small groups of people, so maybe controlling their group wasn't necessarily the priority. It wasn't necessary
yet. No, of course not. Yeah,
but I guarantee.
So it's it was more truthful religious experience.
And I guarantee you that had paganism survived and reached, and had been like the major religion
of now,
they'd be controlling people.
Of course, books would have been written and the rules would have been written down already. Yeah, people want to guard that as well, because you have a small group of people. That group grows. Some people start analyzing and questioning something. Yeah. So you splinter, poof, and the second one is
exactly, yeah.
So that's why they guard and they want to write it down and they want to have rules. So people stick to them But
well, I mean, I can even see within. I mean, there are many people I know that formally practice like some sort of pagan religion.
Yeah.
They have their little, small groups, their covens and whatnot that they work in. And from an outsider, because I'm not part of any kind of organized. If anything, I'm a lone practitioner of a cross section of different ideologies, which I think is a healthy way to approach things.
Me too.
But I see people who are very much wrapped up in these very specific things, and how even in those small groups, which might only be like 10 or 15 people, there's someone trying to be the leader and flex their muscles and be like, okay, this is the rule,
This is how it goes. Yeah. That's true. You'll always have that, or even a lot of people who follow it need someone to stand firm as well. It's double.
Yeah.
You'll have the ego ones trying to step forward and claim everything, and then you'll have the followers wanting it to happen. It's weird,
Yeah.
The dynamics of that is so weird and different.
So earlier you were mentioning this thing that was happening in Belgium where you had, the fire, and you guys are performing some piece of music. Now, one of the things that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of is that there's like a bigger picture to Amenra. There's like the Church of Ra and these associated other artists and musicians and writers and things like that.
Yeah,
so you want to like, shed some light on that?
Well, we could dumb it down and call it a collective, an art collective.
Okay.
That would be the simple approach to the whole thing. It started off when we started the band with five musicians, and then the whole aesthetic and visual idea came to form itself. And then we had shitloads of friends helping us out accomplishing it. Photographers, painters, graphic designers. Even contemporary dancers, whatever you can think of, whoever we crossed paths with, and we thought that we're doing the same thing with a different medium.
Mm-hmm.
We would try to do something together, which would make all parties grow and tell the same story by any means necessary.
Right.
So that's where we realized, like, we need a name for that thing. It's not only Amenra, because we'd be claiming all the credit
exactly
with 5 persons, while there's a whole bunch of people involved. So that's what we so Ra is pretty much symbol for life. So it became the Church of Life. It became the guy us trying to fucking explain life or whatever, or how to live it in our eyes. It was our coping mechanisms and us working together on trying to do so as good as possible. So that's pretty much how the Church of Ra got its origin of it. But I mean, it might even be a way of trying to create a moral something morally funded, like trying to be an as good human being as you can be, and trying to like help each other out as much as we can, and not elbowing each other out of the way,
right,
if we can, because I saw a lot of that happening in the music scene around me.
Mm-hmm.
Where everybody was making fun of all the other bands, and everybody thought of himself to be the coolest one around, and I was like, you guys are like busting in your own windows. It didn't make sense to me. And then I was like, fuck, we're not gonna do this. We're gonna try to make everybody grow along the way, and so everybody can look back on this with a warm heart. When we're gonna be 70 years old, I want us all to look back at this as being something extraordinary. And that's kind of what we try to do.
That's awesome. That's some of the stuff like involved with straight edge too, because like I remember like back in the day, it's like being straight edge was like, I think it was a positive thing, especially. I mean, initially it was positive, and then people began to use that as a tool to like judge everyone by. And
you always have that. You'll always have that.
Yeah, feel superior somehow. Then it became very myopic, in a lot of ways.
It was the ones screaming loudest about it. We're always the first ones to go down, or we're always the first ones to So we always kept low. We've been used to being the underdog, and we don't mind being so. I mean, I think it's best to stay humble and see whatever it brings you. Being humble and thankful never did anybody any harm, I think. So
I was just going to add that. I think that being humble is probably the best. Probably the best practice.
And
I
that
think
definitely comes from the hardcore background we have. You do it yourself, and you try to do it as good as possible, and you don't want to bust someone's balls doing so. I mean, like you do it yourself, you do it as good as possible, and everybody wins. And it's still how it works for us, I think.
There's a series of books, or there's at least one book that the Church of Ra like sort of documents. So. You have more plans on releasing more of that kind of material, like more documentation?
Yeah, we're working on 3 books right now. Like, Also, it's the same. It's interesting for us. It's kind of us trying to analyze what the fuck we're doing as well. It forces us to think things through and analyze it for ourselves, which gives us new insights every time around. Every conversation we have gives us insights about the things we do, and we definitely, like one book we have is a photo book, and and also an academic analyze of our albums, analysis of our albums. and the evolution in them, and us, trying to find our way with our music. Then another one is a small book that we call our little Bible. That was the first one we did, and that was our guitar player's girlfriend back then who helped us create it. And it's more like a poetic way. We gathered some pictures we had, like all individually. We took our phones, threw them on the table, and we took some pictures that we had on the phones, some explanations, more like a poetic, abstract way of analyzing what we do without writing it down black on white again, and that's the thing,
And that's also interesting because it allows other people to kind of project their own experiences onto it. You know what I mean? It's like so that
a book is a good way for that.
Yeah, they can relate to it
and
in a certain
build
way.
your own little cosmos of what you've read, and that's how it should be, I think. Yeah. Because I know I want people to know too that we want to, and we are more than just a heavy music band. I feel we have something to say, as abstract as it can be, but I feel there is more to us than just an annexation of heavy riffs.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, and the books help with that. Kind of make it, people see it, that there's something to say here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why I've been following Amenra's career, since the early 2000s, because like I always felt like there was more to the band than just, like you said, like heavy riffs and, sick guitar tones and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, like our guitar player played with his first amp and his first guitar for like over 15 years. We didn't really give a rat's ass about sound. We always thought about it's what you write and what you talk about that is important, not the production, not who you recorded with, and that's pretty much where what 90% of the interviews is about in press. I heard you record with that person. We're like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter. It's fucking what we're writing about. It's the story behind the whole thing that counts, not really the sound of the, or what effect pedal you use,
That's like the other aspect of it, because you guys always had this very punk sort of thing going on, and when I say punk, I mean going all the way back to you don't sound anything like these bands, but like Crass and like that kind of content over, like the music is a vehicle for an idea.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like having a sick production and be able to shred solos and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quest to make every part of a song do something emotionally with someone. Either you make it really small, you feel vulnerable as fuck, but then you have a slow build up where you climb out of that hole. It's like portraying how life is from time to time, and that's how we handle structure in songs. Not really like, okay, we need a bridge or we need that. We don't need shit. We just need this has to make sense, like emotionally. Like, well, okay, this is a good riff, but what are we trying to do with it?
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay, let's throw it away then. I'm like, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, cool thing is we've been playing for so long now that we really understand each other. It makes it hard to play with other people though, but we kind of understand each other really well. So
yeah, it's definitely the benefits of a band that's been around this long, and the level of comfort. And I mean, all the other members of your band have other, it's like Oathbreaker is another band I like quite a bit, and they're expanding and doing all these other things at the same time. I mean, you're doing stuff too on your own too.
Yeah,
right?
we all have different bands and different things going, and like contemporary dance performances where we do music for, and solo shit. Everybody has its own thing. As soon as we make a certain music, we don't want to change much. I mean, with Amenra, it's not like sometimes we make things and we go like, yeah, no, it doesn't fit the profile for Amenra, and then a new band gets formed. Yeah, because we think it's good, but it doesn't really fit the thing. So there's suddenly a black metal band, there's suddenly a shoegazy band, and there's suddenly a fucking folky hurdy-gurdy thing going there, and and it's really interesting. You learn from that, and you take it with you again for the next album. So it's nice to see so many creative and passionate people creating shitloads of stuff all the time.
So do you have any particular parts of the U.S. that you enjoy more than others? Like any particular cities you like?
We'll always have Brooklyn in our hearts because we spend a lot of time here. Like we hung out a lot with the people from a band called Made Out of Babies.
Oh yeah, I know Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan's a good old friend of mine actually.
And,
Cooper.
Yeah, voila. Yeah, and we stayed at their places
Nice.
a lot, and we were always really welcome here. And apparently, I was at the shrink once, and she asked me like, think about your happy place. Like, what is your happy place? Where did you feel extremely happy? And then I remembered walking through Greenpoint and having the sun shine through the trees. You know, when we went to whatever a deli. It doesn't need to be special, but that was my happy place. So for us, it's always nice to come here. It's yeah.
Yeah, this is an interesting city. It's like I think most people will have a love-hate relationship with living in New York, you know, Brooklyn or any of the other boroughs because it's an incredibly difficult place to live. However, there's filled with moments like you just described where it's like, yeah, you know, I had a horrible day at work, but then I'm walking to the deli and, you know, you see some trees and there's sunlight and it kind of makes the day all right.
It's nuts, how light can influence a human being, or give it a certain emotion.
Yeah. So the visuals and everything everything's more improvements in the visuals, you know, different looks on stage now. Or?
We're trying to get everything better and better every little step, but we're not in a hurry. I mean, every little step we do. So now we started already like filming for the next album that's not even written yet. You know, so we're a little earlier on now doing that, so that might get a little better than it was before. Slow steps, you know, trying, you know.
Now it's funny you mentioned that because the creative process oftentimes extends way beyond actually sitting there with your instrument. And believe it or not, I heard an interview with David Lee Roth from Van Halen. Yeah. And he was talking about how people ask him, well, how long did it take you to write, you know, Running with the Devil, you know? And he just went into this whole description of like, well, you know, after reading like 500 books and like, you know, seeing 2,000 hours of films and listening to like 10,000 hours of music for my whole life, it took me 10 minutes to write the song.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you know the point though?
It's been cooking inside you for 20 years already.
Yeah, but
that's true.
It's like a culmination of all these different things.
I mean, you plant a seed when you're fucking 16 years old for a certain song. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Yeah, it's true. It's over the course of your life that an album is written. You know, not necessarily in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I love hearing stories like that because you'd be surprised.
Makes
like
sense.
certain bands, like, you know, so you talk to certain people, and I mean, and that's their process. They're just like, all right, we're gonna write a new album. You know, we got 2 months, go in the practice space every night, and we're just gonna do it. You know, and like, but you know, that to me, because I know like it takes me a long time to write, especially lyrics, and if anything that I wrote in a month has the same like sort of vibe to it.
Yeah.
You know, and then
it's true. If you make a compact, it's a whole more than a
very condensed sounding.
True. Yeah.
You know, and I don't like doing that either. You know, I like to have like time, and you know, I like similar to what you're saying. I think it's a great practice to always be open to new ideas and always have like a notebook and sketches of stuff that you're doing, you know.
In the end, it's always created from inside you, from in your mind. So there'll always be a link that is undeniable.
Right.
It is what you feel inside and how your brain works and how you see the world that is translated onto paper. So it's always a whole. Either you want it to be or not, I think, you know. But it definitely is a long process. You know?
Yeah. So this tour is pretty great. Yob, Voivod, you guys.
Totally, yeah.
Are you fans of all the other two bands on this tour?
Yeah, totally. And it's so inspiring to see, like, for example, Voivod being 36 years around, still doing what they did when they were, you know, like 16 years old or whatever. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring, and it creates a certain hopeful atmosphere where, you know, like kind of you realize like this is possible, you know, and they're having fun, you know, and it's really it's amazing to be on tour with a band like that. And Yob, I mean, like for a 3-piece, it's fucking incredible what they do.
Yeah, they're
I
great.
mean, holy shit, they're heavy.
Yeah.
The musicmanship is nuts. Mike's vocal range is the
incredible.
wildest thing I have ever witnessed in my life.
He's like 3 different people like
It's
on stage.
crazy.
Yeah.
And they're so fucking heavy.
Yep.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing to see. Yeah. And yeah, definitely it inspires you and it pushes you, you know. You realize, you see what is possible, and it definitely triggers you to work harder, you know. So it's really amazing to be on this tour again. We get to play awesome venues. You know, the places are packed, and it's cool for a Belgian band, you know, to be able to reach so much people again. So
I'm particularly fond of this venue, Warsaw.
Yeah,
It's,
the owner is really cool, or the person who always who's always here. I don't know if he's the owner or not, but he's awesome, man. And we've played there a couple of times already now, so it's kind of like you get to know it, and you get to know the place, and you get to know what needs to be where, and it's getting nicer and nicer to arrive at a certain venue, you know.
Yeah, it's got, you know, they got excellent pierogies here too.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've partaken of that.
It's like it's like a family-run thing, you know, like an old little lady making the pierogies, and it's really fun to see. Yeah,
like a place like this is like
it's genuine.
It's genuine, and it's also part of like a dying breed, I think. In this city.
It is. They are disappearing one by one.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know, being replaced by like the cold, calculating, you know, corporate venue.
The cold place. Yeah, no, true. It's true, and it all becomes a unison, one unit, and it's all the same thing, you know. So it's nice to have something with character and identity, you know.
Well, Colin, thanks a lot. I appreciate sitting with me, and looking forward to the show tonight.
Thank you, man.
You know, welcome to the States again. Welcome to Brooklyn.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And you know, I hope you have a great time here.
Thank you very much, man.
All right.
Great time.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Metal Matters, a Gimme Radio weekly podcast. Tune in next week and see what we have in store for you. The show is available on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, etc. Also, be sure to check out Gimme Radio, streaming on the web, iOS, or Android, for one of the best metal communities, exclusive merch, interviews with artists, and so much more. I'll catch you guys next week. Take care.